Strike me, Jackie, I'm back on the air again.
Don't be the sword on the postman's face.
Hi-ho, everybody. Three voices. Three voices out of a multitude of performers, famous and forgotten. Most native-born, some adopted by this friendly southern land. All of them part of fair Dinkum variety. Hello there, this is John West bringing you the voices of 100 of Australia's greatest variety stars, taken off gramophone records from as far back as we've been able to find them. Fittingly, the first voice is the greatest of all. Roy Reen was born Harry van der Sluis, son of an Adelaide cigar manufacturer. As a youngster, he was Boy Roy the boy soprano. As a young man, he journeyed to New Zealand to perform on the Fuller circuit. In 18 months, he had found himself as a performer, after evolving his characteristic makeup, a whitened face with the jet-black painted moustache and beard of the Hebrew comic. Back in Australia, he was soon ready to team up with Nat Phillips, and in July 1916 at the Princess Theatre, Sydney, the pair wrote a new page of theatrical history as Stiffy and Mo.
The spectrum, see, eh? On shore again and glad to be out of that boat. Yeah. Ship ahoy! 2 ships ahoy. We've just returned from sea, across the raging main, and now we're over from sea, we won't go back again. The sea is funny, don't you see, it is with you and me, with the ups and downs, downs and ups, no more sea for me. We've been aboard a pirate ship, we've just given the captain slip, and being in touch, we welcome him back to the raging sea. We've been aboard a pirate ship, we've just given the captain slip, and being in touch, we welcome him back to the raging sea. Back on land. Well, I'm going down to the old pub to see the girl down there, then I'm going to get me paid. But remember, while I'm away, you have no drink. No drink, that's the main thing. Going to be any booze, I'm going to be in it.
Their 10 years as a team were not placid, nor unmarked by separations, but they created in the public mind an indelible, perhaps I should say, an indelibly blue impression. Subtlety had no place in the variety theatre of those days, but it is unlikely that Stiffy and Mo were as vulgar as legend suggests. And their material did not lack satirical, topical comment. Witness the reference to Premier Jack Lang of New South Wales in this parody of Ukulele Lady.
A eucalyptus baby, give me plenty pork and Irish stew. Right, sir, I'm not one. No. A eucalyptus baby. Well, I'll see what Mr. Lang can do. Would you like a eucalyptus baby? A eucalyptus baby like a you? 'Cause I like a eucalyptus baby, providing that it's not a Jew. Would you nurse a eucalyptus baby? You never know what it might do. If you'd like a eucalyptus baby, I'll see what Mr. Lang can do.
The serious songs of bygone days have an unenviable task. They have to pass through the filter of today's sophistication. The greatest difficulty is to hear them with ears unashamed of sentimentality. And yet audiences who relish the knockabout vulgarity of vaudeville comics also relish the sad and sentimental ballad of loss or mother love.
There's no silver lining in any cloud like the silver in my mother's hair. Nothing so precious in all the world, nothing with it will compare. I've seen the dewdrop upon the rose,
That was Vince Courtney, who appeared in many shows, often singing songs of his own composition. The suburbs knew him as well as the city, for in those days, the suburbs had their theatres too, and the theatres had their comics. Ward Lear, Harry Sadler, Porky Kearns, Les Shipp, Ted Tutty, and Sid Beck.
Does an elephant love peanuts? Does he? Does a goldfish love a bowl? Does an ostrich love to stand while his head's down in a sand pile? Does a hot dog love a roll with mustard on? Now does a bumblebee love honey? Does he? Does an oyster love a stew? When it comes to table manners, does a monkey love bananas? If he does, then baby, I love you. I am a gay caballero. I'm back again from Janeiro. And you bet your life I'll be dodging the wife and the husband who chewed off my hero. While coming here on the steamer, I met a beautiful dreamer. Each kiss that I got, her lipstick left a spot, and the captain thought I had eczema. Eczema, not eczema. What do you think eczema is? You come out in spots. Yes, right. Now, last night I strolled on the plaza. The music was playing some jazza. Then I heard a noise. It was made by some boys. By gosh, I was getting the razzer. She took me to her home to nestle. Her room was as big as a castle. I said, why so much space? Then she said, in case you get fresh, I need room to wrestle.
The faithful audiences who came to the stalls of vaudeville also came to the galleries of the plays, sometimes to the melodramas of Bland Holt or Alfred Dampier or Charles Holloway, always to the innumerable revivals of Sweet Nell of Old Drury. Sweet Nell was played by a Sweet Nell, too. Nellie Stewart was born in Woolloomooloo, Sydney, in November 1858, of theatrical parents. A star at 22, she remained a star for half a century. She played Sweet Nell on and off for 25 years. She was a very great lady.
Oranges who buy my oranges. Here you. Will you buy an orange?
Perhaps. What are they worth?
All I can get.
No doubt. And what is that?
All you will give.
You answer sharply, Nell.
Would you have me blunt?
I'll try again.
No, and I'll say a shilling for an orange, won't you? Come on, say. I doubt you only seek to plague me. Why do you keep company with yonder rakes?
Why not?
You have to honest the face.
Yet I warrant you they are both of them the king's friends.
Most likely. But all England knows what company he keeps.
And that?
The worst in London.
A sharp tongue indeed. Have you a lover, Nell?
A lover? Not I. I'd be hanged first.
But someone loves you, Nell.
Loves me. Loves Nell Gwynn. Me name a byword. And me dower, a basket of oranges. Why, what's there to love in me? And what is love but folly?
Sweet Nell even had the distinction in 1911 of being transferred to the cinema screen. Australia was making films, and feature films at that, before Hollywood was founded. In 1914, the First World War brought a great upsurge to the Australian theatre, and also brought in its wake a number of all-digger concert parties who created a precedent for the Kiwis of the Second World War and made a career of the professional stage. One of the most famous of those post-1918 companies was headed by G.P., always called Pat, Hanna.
Let us read in the Gospel according to cricket. Lo, it came to pass in all the creation of cricket, the children of Aussie prevailed over all other creatures. They conquered the Kiwis, they walloped the West Indianians, and the Hindustanis, yea, and the South Africancians, and they smote the hosts of the Britons, They returned unto their own land rejoicing and calling out in a loud voice, Gettest thou an eyeful even of the sacred ashes? Is she any good? Lo, all these things came to pass in the days of one Donald, who was the son of Bradman. It came to pass in the first year of the crowning of the second good Queen Bess. The children of Ozzy called it out in great anguish. Thou, O Sir Donald, gettest thou an eyeful even of this testine which the three wise selectors, even the three blind mice, have sent forth to save the sacred ashes?
What a lot of leading ladies have vied for affection on the musical stage. Florence Young, Carrie Moore, Dorothy Brunton, Minnie Love, Maud Fane, Elsie Prince, Josie Melville. Let all these well-loved favourites be represented by Australia's greatest native-born musical comedy star, Gladys Moncrief. Talent sometimes bursts out in one favoured individual, but in a theatre the odds are that a number of members of the one family will all become favourites of the footlights. The Pollards of the 1880s are just one example. Remember, too, 3 generations of Wallaces, the Kelloways, the Dancing McLeans, and the Blewitts. Fred Blewett was a star before the 20th century began, and of his children, Gus was seen in a whole string of musical comedies until his early death in 1936, and Kitty is well known today overseas. Old Fred, big, bluff, and hearty, made a few records in the old days.
All for the ladies, all for the girls, all for the dainty darlings dressed their golden curls. You're here and I'm here to kiss their tears away and love them all the day and let them have their way. All for the ladies, we part our golden hair and polish up our teeth as white as fur. Ah, girls, you ought to be very grateful when you come to think of the wonderful things that's been done for you. Take the animals. Why was the rabbit created? To make you beautiful sealskin coats. And the nanny goat was made that you should have kid gloves. And the silkworm was made so that you should have beautiful silken camisoles. And then another worm was invented, the poor man, so that he should pay for them. Then take the swan, for instance, the poor old swan. It was made so that you should have beautiful powder puffs, so that your dear little noses won't go shiny. There's many a swan who's going around without a waistcoat through the same thing. Then take the bargain sales, oh, the bargain sales, all for the ladies, all the dainty little thingamies and the whatnots, and the how-do-we-goes with dainty bows and furbelows and rows of heaven's nose. What's the use, for it never shows, unless you stand on your head and clap your toes. But let a man dare to poke his nose amongst the hose and the dainty clothes, and the shop girl blushing like a rose will say, don't put your hands on those. Don't mess the goods about in the bargain basement. They're all for the ladies, all for the girls.
Some of the great legitimate singers were not strangers to the variety stage. Harold Williams and Sidney Birchall, for instance. And, of course, Peter Dawson, who was not only J.P. McCall, songwriter, but also Hector Grant, Scottish comedian, as well as Dawson, the ballad singer.
There's a train winding back to an old peasant shack along the road to Gandalgar.
guns are growing and the Murrumbidgee is flowing beneath that sunny sky. Where my daddy and mother are waiting for me, and the part of my childhood once more I will see. Then no more will I roam when I'm heading right home along the road.
Variety acts come in all shapes and sizes. Everything from a family of acrobats or trick cyclists down to one lonely, hopeful performer in a spotlight. Perhaps for company, in part, the double act was and is one of the most popular of all. Dinks and Onkus, Dinks Patterson and George Wallace, Cy Meredith and Maudie Stewart, the Musical Max, and many, many more. Sometimes it was the Brothers This or the Something Sisters, whose birth certificates told a different story. For variation, there was Clem Dorr and Eric Edgley, who were in fact brothers, part of a large theatrical family. Here is Clem Dorr, alone for once.
Life's a blessing in disguise, that's what the wise men tell. If my old girl's a blessing, she's disguised it very well. I know one day I'll get real vexed and give her such a smack. Still I couldn't strike a woman, and besides she might strike back. So what can I do when Sue stands 6 feet 2? I'm black and blue, but what can I do? What can I do on only Irish stew that tastes like glue? What can I do? When I see her first husband's photograph, I know what he went through. I sit alone and moan on his tombstone. I'm number 2, but what can I do?
Variety has always been a resilient form of theatre, but the Great Depression knocked it hard. In 1931, the husband and wife team Mike Connors and Queenie Poole, with great courage at that time, began giving cheap-price variety to audiences hungry for fun, or just plain hungry. Within a few months, the policy of low prices and Australian talent was paying off handsomely. Mike and Queenie had re-established variety on a firm footing. Later in life, Mike, an American by birth, commanded a huge radio following with his breakfast time sessions. He recorded this song with his old-time partner, Freddie Witt, with whom he made his Australian debut in 1916.
Little garden for the rose, and they called it Dixieland. They built a summer breeze, but the heat of snow far away from Dixieland. They built the finest place I've known. When they built our home sweet home, nothing much so gotten in the land of cotton, from the clover to the honeycomb. And then they took an angel from the sky, and they gave her heart to me. She had a little bit of heaven in her eyes, just as blue as the blue can be. They put some fine spring chickens in our land, taught my mama how to use a frying pan. They made it twice as nice as paradise, and they called it Dixieland.
In the early days of radio, Englishman Rupert Hazel did a lot of broadcasting in Australia. Hazel, with his partner Elsie Day, was well known in the vaudeville programs of the 20s. And here's a skit he recorded about 3LO Melbourne. Before it was the ABC, of course.
3LO Melbourne, we are now crossing over to the Moonshine Valley Racecourse, where the race for the Phillips Stakes will be described by Shotgun, the sporting editor of the Church Times. 3LO Melbourne, speaking from the Moonshine Valley Racecourse. The horses are at the barrier for the Phillips Stakes. Padding is playing up. He's thrown his jockey. I think the jockey's dead. I knew the horse was.
The weather is beautifully fine for midsummer in Melbourne. A cold sleet is blowing into the stand. This is a very exciting race. Coming up the straight, Jaundice, Grand Mash and Anthrax are racing neck and neck. Jaundice will win. No, Grand Mash got up just in time. Grand Mash won, Jaundice second, and Anthrax third. The judges' placings are Deformed first, Toothache second, and Airbag third. I knew I wasn't far out. The winner's prize, judging from its appearance, is about 1 8 3 L. Melbourne. We have had numerous complaints about interruption by Morse. We cannot, of course, entirely eliminate this, so the studio orchestra will play something that fits in.
Well, that's it. If you can't lick 'em, join 'em. Those Morse sounds would bring back some memories to veteran Melbourne listeners. About the time that Rupert Hazel made that record, a graceful dancing duo was delighting Australian audiences, Madge Elliott and Cyril Ritchard. Later, as husband and wife, they had distinguished careers in the legitimate theatre. And today, Cyril Ritchard is one of Broadway's top actor-directors.
Whatever became of old Hazard? I hear he departed this life after using harsh words like old bag and buzzard, describing the governor's wife. I remember Monroe in the PAVO. He was tallish and mentally dim. That talk of heredity can't be quite true. He was dropped on his head by his ayah at 2. I presume that by now he'll have reached GHQ. Yes, I'm sure that's what happened to him.
The male impersonator has had a firm place in theatrical history since the days of the English music hall. Two of England's most famous male impersonators, Hetty King and Ella Shields, became favourites in Australia too. And here's another artist who was also a first-rate pantomime principal boy, Nellie Colley.
Just tell them you're a Londoner, just an ordinary little Londoner. You don't come from the West End job, you're as good as anybody in the West End mob. Your mother, she was a Londoner, proud of a tiny abode. When they ask you where you come from, tell them you were born somewhere in the old Kent Road. Tell them you're a Londoner, just an ordinary little Londoner. You don't come from the West End job, as good as anybody in the West End mob. Your mother, she was a Londoner, proud of a tiny abode. When they ask you where you come from, tell them you were born somewhere in the old Kent Road.
When the famous team of Stiffy and Moe was finally broken beyond repair by Nat Phillips' death in June 1932, Roy Rean continued his career as a star solo comic. His genius needed no male partner, but he did need a female partner as a feed, and he found her in his own wife, Sadie, herself born to the theatre and daughter of the old-time comic Sam Gale. Roy himself said of Sadie Gale, she has polish, finish, and finesse.
Well, darling, the last day of our honeymoon, love.
Yes, dear.
Have you enjoyed yourself?
Yes, dear.
You feel all right, lovey?
Yes, thank you, dear.
We've had a wonderful time, haven't we?
Yes.
Back to the bush today, love.
Yes, dear.
Back to the cactus.
Yes.
Back to me job timber cutting. I'm just dying to get a sword in my hand, love. And leave you at home in the house, listening to all the little birds chirping in the trees.
Yes, dear.
Feel all right, lovey?
Yes, thank you, dear.
When you get back home, love, you'll be able to show all the girls all the pretty things you bought. You'll be able to show them that beautiful first stable you got on.
Yes, dear, real skunk.
Hey?
Real skunk.
Yeah, I can smell it from here. What are you shaking it for?
I'm going to get a few mothballs for it.
Mothballs? My God, you want cannonballs to kill everything in there. Feel all right, lovey?
Yes, thank you, dear.
Did you like the hotel I brought you to?
Yes, it's beautiful.
It's a wonderful hotel. And isn't the boss, Mr. McCackey, a fine fellow?
A gentleman.
I think Mr. McCackey is one of nature's own gentlemen. Now, I'll go and see Mr. McCackey and ask him for the bills here, see? And we'll go upstairs and pack up as we can get the first train. Feel all right, lovey?
Yes, thanks, dear.
Don't undo that sash around your waist, darling. You're liable to fall in the heat.
But what of the theatre outside the capital cities? Bringing something of the glamour and excitement of the big smoke to the outback were the tent shows, which travelled up and down the length and breadth of Australia in days when transport was much more difficult than now. There were shows like Barton's Follies, Mac's, Cole's Varieties, the Great Levant, and circuses like Perry's, Worth's, Bullen's, and Soul's. One tent variety show that still takes to the road every year is Sawley's. It's still run by Mrs. Grace Sawley and the comedian Bobby LeBrun. But it takes its name from its founder, George Sawley, a mellow singer of sentimental songs, as well as an all-round showman.
It's just an old-fashioned locket and a code that frames an old-fashioned photo of a girl. If she were only here today, the little curlets tucked away of golden hair, so young and fair, would now be silver gray. There is an old-fashioned sweetness in her face that makes her picture seem to me a priceless pearl. For many long and empty years, I've shed a lot of lonely tears upon this old-fashioned locket and a curl.
In the early days of radio in Australia, community singing enjoyed a great vogue. It was often conducted by entertainers like Charlie Lawrence and Jack Lumsden.
We are now commencing the test of 1932. The lion versus the kangaroo. Members of the kangaroo team train on Australia's national food, the hops. Who called us a lot of grounders? While the visitors' staple diet is plum and sardines. The umpires are now out inspecting the wickets, the view being completely obliterated with their hats. The players take the field where to goodness knows, and the first blow is struck to earn the ashes. Woodfull is so wide awake, he's never at a loss. And people sometimes wonder how he always wins the toss. But one hard head who knows him was heard to softly speak. I've seen him playing two up, he can head 'em for a week. When Tate begins to bowl, the batsmen tremble at the knees. The ball comes humming down the pitch just like a hive of bees. The other day, the bails went flying right out to the gate. The batsman smiled a sickly smile and whispered, "Take our take." So this is cricket. Gee, it's a wonderful game.
In the 30s, Jim Davidson and the ABC Dance Band were well known. They often played in live broadcasts for the entire Saturday night program. Here's how they sounded.
We have with us in the studio Mabel from Snake Gully. Say hello, Mabel.
Hello, everybody.
How's about singing this song for us?
Oh, I'd like to do that.
Fine.
Everybody around the place will dance to it. It's gonna set the pace, so friends do it. It's a lifter, body lifter, the Snake Gully swagger. Every tramp along the road will sway to it. Farmers help to load their drays to it. Even abos and their tabos do the Snake Gully swagger. All the pigs in the pen, the roosters and the hens are doing it now. The ducks and the drapes are doing shimmy shakes. Why, even Sally, our champion cow, grab your partner round the waist and go to it. With every step you take, you'll glow to it. It's a spry dance, dinky die dance, the Snake Gully swagger.
Among Australia's comedians, two names stand out predominantly as the greatest this country has produced. One is Roy Reen and the other, George Wallace. George was one Australian stage comedian who also made a success of films. He made a string of money-making movies in the 30s and 40s for F.T. Thring and Cinesound. He was a riot on radio, too, and even just before his death, he was still convulsing theatre patrons with characterizations like Sophie, the sort on the bus.
The other day, a mob of them got in the bus, and I said, that's funny, men carrying a camel. And it wasn't. It was a dog. The biggest dog you have ever seen in your life. So they walked across the bus and sat down on a seat, the man and the dog. I was aghast. I was aghast. I walked over in a ladylike way and I said, look, I said, look. You can't have a dog in the bus under the new award. You can't have it. And this bloke said, but my sweet little thing, and I said, sarcasm won't get you anywhere. You know, I'm a girl who likes refinement and culture and music. I always try to act like a lady, speak like a lady, and to do and to say the things that a lady would do. Always be the perfect lady. I'm having a stink with a sailor in a fish shop the other night. She's frying a bit of mullet a night when he bit with the gills in. And one word led to another and she let go through it, see? Now, I don't know if you've ever been smacked in the mouth with a bit of mullet. With the gills in. But it's a nauseating experience. And it's an each-way bet because you don't know out of which gill the fat's going to squirt first. But I retained my dignity, breathing without... I said, fiddly-dee. French. And went to sweep regally out of the fish shop. But some galah had left out for Frankfurt on me. Now I skidded on that, bashed the base of my skull on the iron railing of the counter. My right hand went in the batter vat. And I finished up in a mangled heap on the floor, unconscious on a bag of prawns. Fishing purposes, 8 bob a pound, on the nose. This is where my mad Latin lover comes into the story. Ginger Ferguson. There's a nice animal for you. Ginger Ferguson. I was laying down unconscious in a coma on the ground. When I came out of it, Ginger's holding me up looking straight in my face with his one good eye. Then he asked me to go out. And, well, you know, girls, when they first asked you to go out, you feel as silly as a duck. You don't know what to say. I said, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I can't make me wind up. And I'm dying to go out there all the way, you know.
And that's one of the deathless creations of the Australian stage. George Wallace as Sophie, the sort on the bus. George Wallace had a half-sister who made an independent reputation as a comedian, particularly as that troublesome child, Babe Scott. And let's not forget that one of the most prolific recording artists in Australia was a cowboy, whose records still sell very well, Tex Morton.
Here she comes, boys. Be ready to take her on the fly. Oh, the hobos are all heading northward, for summertime nearly is done. So just like the rich and the wealthy, we're traveling round with the sun. We'll be in the north for the winter, up in sunshine again. I got my guitar and my blankets, you see, so all I want now is a train. Oh, I'm gonna travel by train, out of the wind and the rain. It's no use you talking to me about walking, 'cause I'm gonna travel by train.
In the field of comedy recordings, Ward Leopold has made a series of sketches over the years that have enjoyed great popularity, the Here's Hooey series. One of the best was the Jubilee Year edition.
Wacko, the digestive tablet that makes everything you eat taste like something else.
We are now canning to Crossborough for the Celebi jubilation.
The weather is perfect except for a few scattered showers in Persia. It is a glorious day in Canberra, the climate here having been imported from Melbourne for the occasion. This is the moment the whole nation has been waiting for, the official welcome by loyal Australian citizens to the royal representatives of the British throne. There is an amazing array of clothes here today. Everybody who's anybody is wearing clothes. In this nationwide broadcast...
Nothing of the kind. What I said was, we are cronning to Caspera for the... Oh.
Ah, yes, there is Lady Blacksby in her pearls, causing quite a sensation. The royal couple are now moving out onto the dais before the huge crowd. The concourse is literally black with people, white people, of course. And now, with magnificently controlled calm, the Australian delegate, chosen from 25,000 others by secret ballot, starts the long walk to the royal dais. There's an expectant hush, and the delegate is now at the foot of the dais. And now, through the person of this one voice, Australia is about to speak an historic greeting. How are you, mate?
Continuing our symphony hour, we present a composition by Tim Tussey entitled Air for Trumpet.
That's all for now, folks. Just write in for your free pair of spare ears and be listening next Jubilee.
Jack Davey was a vocalist when he first came to Sydney from Auckland, New Zealand in 1932. Singing and songwriting remained a passion with him, despite his great success as a quizmaster and comedian. Here are two examples of his own compositions.
There's no more room now in our air raid shelter. There's Aunt and Gran and Dad and Mom and me. And when the sirens sound, we all run helter-skelter. Just Aunt and Gran and Dad and Mom and me. Of course it isn't very big, and it isn't very long, and it isn't very deep, and it isn't very strong. So if a bomb drops, take a quick look up at heaven. For Aunt and Gran and Dad and Mom and me.
I've got a yen for Gwen, and I've had it since gosh knows when. She's a baby that stops, and just everything stops when I get a yen for Gwen. I used to think Kate was great, but whenever we had a date, I'd be spending my dough, and the answer was no, so I shut the gate on Kate. Now Sadie's a lady, Nell is so swell, and Ruby's the gem of them all. Netta is better, but no one can get her, 'cause she's got so much on the ball. So I'll keep my yen for Gwen. She hasn't got much, but then what little she's got, she just gives me the lot. And she's the kind of dame that sets your heart aflame. Gwen's got a yen for men, but then I've got a yen for Gwen.
During the Second World War, one of the big soap companies turned from soap opera to variety and created a radio unit that starred all the biggest names from the Australian stage. One of its funniest teams was made up of two homely spinsters. Yes, those two old-fashioned girls, Ada and Elsie.
Else, the gramophone company want us to do a modern number.
Oh, they don't so too.
Yes, they do so too. They say we're too old-fashioned.
Well, I don't see there's any difference between us and those ultra-modern girls.
Neither do I. Except they go out with the Johnnies and we stay home with the Willies. Get your note. We'll swing it if we swing for it.
You called me baby doll a year ago. Itchy-coo,
itchy-coo, itchy-coo. You said that I was very nice to her.
No, wait a minute, Elsie. You went wrong.
Well, you put me off. Your nose keeps twitching.
I can't help it. I had rabbit for lunch. Start again and put in a couple of boops and a dupe or two.
You called me baby doll a year ago. Itchy-coo, itchy-coo, itchy-coo. You said that I was very nice to know.
Elsie, you're breathing very bad.
Turn your head away.
You told me what love was. I thought I knew skiddly-dee, but then I found that all I learned was how to love you, raggedy-coo. You said that you would love me in return.
Waggle your head, Else.
Don't say that you were fooling after all.
I said your head.
But now you've gone away, you'll be sorry someday, dirty dog. You left behind a broken doll of the R-O-K-E and old boop-a-doop.
Oh, that's giving him hot cigarette if you like. How do you think it sounded?
Lousy. It's not the way Molly Roberts gets them in when she sings a song.
Well, what's she got that we haven't got?
Can't think of a thing. But she does sing a song as though she means it.
And she certainly means it. Oh, we're back in numbers, Elsie.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it meant anything.
What?
Those silverfish coming out of my hope chest.
Perhaps they've given up hoping, too. Oh, I'd just love to be married and have a provider and 3 or 4 kids of my own.
I'd rather have 3 or 4 providers of my own and a kid.
Oh, Elsie, don't tell us.
Why don't you marry Mr. Hopkins?
Oh, no, Elsie's too old. He'd never last out my trousseau.
He likes you, though, doesn't he?
I don't know. I asked him the other day. I said, Mr. Hopkins, I can't figure out if you're a gentleman or I just don't appeal to you.
Oh, wait, you've never.
Did so.
Not straight out.
Did so, too. He's a bit stingy, though, Else.
That's what I thought.
Keeps a pound note folded so long King George gets in growing whiskers. Oh, Else, if we only had a bit of pep like Molly Roberts.
Well, as I said before, Aid, what's Molly Roberts got what I haven't got?
Nothing, but you've had it longer. Get your note.
You said that you would love me in return.
Have you been eating onions again?
Don't say that you were fooling after all. Tiddly-om-tom, skiddly-iddly-dee. But now you're
don't
away.
Oh, dear, I've forgotten the words.
Sunday, well, why don't you concentrate?
I do. And then you breathe on my face, and that's all I can remember. Oh.
Dorothy Foster and Rita Paunceford were, of course, established performers long before they were metamorphosed into Ada and Elsie. But radio has had its share in discovering and developing talent, too. One graduate of wireless variety was a girl who went on to considerable success in England, Joy Nichols.
When a boy from Alabama meets a girl from Gundagai, winter turns into spring and the birds start to sing a sweet lullaby. When the boy from Alabama tells the girl from Gundagai that, believe it or not, he sure likes her a lot, a silver linings in the sky. Pretty soon they're strolling out together, a new day has begun. Life is just a bunch of sunny weather, and troubles like bubbles go one by one. When a boy from Alabama meets a girl from Gundagai, all the world is in tune, and a sweet honeymoon will happen in the by.
There were a number of comedians who mastered the craft of radio comedy in the war years. One was George Blackshaw, and yet another went on to massive successes in Take It From Here. From crooner and violinist to Ron Glum is the journey made by Dick Bentley.
In the porch my girl is wise, puts the light out by surprise, 'cause she says it hurts her eyes. Well, that's psychology. Through a romance on a boat, my girl's got me by the throat. She's demanding a fur coat. Well, that's psychology. And when we're in the park, oh, it's getting dark. Then she tells me there's no place like home. Wouldn't it? Though she could have pushed a pram. Well, now she's working on a tram and getting big dough like a man. Please, that's psychology. That's psychology. That's psychology. Or is it?
And whom haven't we yet had time to mention? Well, myriads of performers. Bert Bailey, for instance. He was famous as a pantomime dame, as well as for his performance as Dad in On Our Selection. And while we're on panto, let's not forget those other fine dames. Arthur Stigant, New Zealander Joe Brennan, and Aussie Jim Gerald, who, as Lieutenant Colonel Gerald, organized army entertainment units during World War II. One acquisition to Australia during the war years was an American who was billed as the last of the hillbillies, Bob Dyer.
Howdy, folks, howdy. I guess you people have heard hillbilly singers and hillbilly musicians of every rank, but you've never heard one as rank as me. I've got a song I want to sing for you folks now. It's an awful sad song. It's called The Death of Willie. Oh, it's a sad song. The way I sing the darn thing, it's pitiful. Anyway, it's called The Death of Willie, and if Willie don't die, darn him, George and the boys will kill him. What do you say, boys? You all set now? Here we go. Get together and bear down. A one and a two and the tootly ensemble cantabile. Let her flicker. He's gone from us forever, our darling blue-haired boy. Our cockeyed darling we will see no more. He gently passed away on the 93rd of May. He never died so suddenly before. We know that he was a-dying by the freckles on his breath. His eyeballs was dragging in the mud. The doctor said the only way to save Willie's life was stop the circulation of the blood. Play it, boys.
Many Australians became popular on records. Johnny Wade with his Hawaiian songs, Barbara James singing with her husband Reg Lewis at the piano, and the bands of Leo White and George Trevere. There was also the traditional jazz of Graham Bell. Before the impact of television hit the radio stations, one of the most popular audience participation comedy programs on the fair Dinkum ether was George Sassafras Foster's Bunkhouse Show.
I have eaten so many sausages, my dear Lucy, that I think I am getting indigestion.
Aha! He's suffering from acid indigestion. Do you suffer from acid indigestion? You do? Then stop drinking acid. Drink, prep-so, burp-so. The only drink that fizzes twice before you drink it and once afterwards.
Lucy, darling, do you think it's quite right for me to be with you tonight? After all, your husband is out of town.
I know. That's because he's a commercial traveler.
Yes, he sells Pip Pip, the famous headache powder. Remember the name, folks? Pip Pip, spelled backwards, Pip Pip.
What time are you expecting your husband home, Lucy?
Not until late, Cedric.
Then come close, my darling. Let me look at you. Oh, you look gorgeous this evening.
He must be taking someone's vitamin pills. But a word, ladies. The reason she looks gorgeous is because she's wearing a cutie foundation garment. Girls, are you putting up a good front? Or has inflation passed you by? your cutie garment tomorrow, sold everywhere, complete with bicycle pump.
There have been many Australians in variety who've had success overseas. Some, indeed, went on to greater fame in England and America than in Australia. Names like Albert Whelan, Nona Wynne, and Leon Errol meant more away from Australia than in the country of their birth. One robust music hall star who became Queen of the Isle of Man was born Florence Flanagan in a hotel in Fitzroy, Melbourne, kept by her parents. When she went on the stage at the turn of the century, she took her stepfather's surname and went on to fame as Florrie Ford.
Flanagan, take me to the Isle of Man again. Take me where the folks all cry nay. Jump a well by Flanagan, Flanagan, if you love your Mary Ann. Oh, Flanagan, take me to the Isle of Man.
Florrie Ford made almost her whole career overseas, but some Australian artists have gone away, returned home to success, and gone away again. A recent example is Rolf Harris.
Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down.
Keep me cockatoo cool, curl. Keep me cockatoo cool. Don't go acting the fool, curl. Just keep me cockatoo cool. All together now.
Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down.
Singers of Western-style songs have always been popular, especially in the country districts, and especially when they've written songs with an Australian flavour. Smilin' Billy Blinkhorn, Johnny Ashcroft, Frank Ifield, they're all examples, and so is Slim Dusty.
It's lonesome away from your kindred and all, by the campfire at night, where the wild dingoes call. But there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of a pub with no beer. Now the publican's anxious for the quota to come, and there's a faraway look on the face of the bum. The maid's gone all cranky, and the cook's acting queer. Oh, what a terrible place is a pub with no beer. Then the stockman rides up with his dry, dusty throat. He pressed up to the bar and pulls a wad from his coat. But the smile on his face quickly turns to a sneer as the barman says sadly, the pub's got no beer. Then the swaggy comes in, smothered in dust and flies. He throws down his roll and rubs the sweat from his eyes. But when he is told, he says, "What's this I hear? I've trudged 50 flamin' miles to a pub with no beer."
The days of the great Australian comics who drew their laughs from the Australian scene, like Moe and George Wallace, Jim Gerald, the Blewitts and Sid Beck, seem to be over. But comedy remains. The fashion alters, but the art of making people laugh goes on. Television fosters laugh makers like Bobby Lim and Buster Fidesz, and the slicker, more American approach is exemplified by Joe Martin, an Englishman now settled in Australia.
Fantastic cowboy stories. I remember one cowboy story. It's the funniest cowboy story you ever did hear. Never got a laugh, but I like doing it because it gets plenty of character. This is the story of the Pony Express. This guy, he was a Pony Express rider. You see, he used to ride a horse. The idea was that this Pony Express rider had to get through to the fort with the mail. and he snatched on his old mail bags, and off he went to the fort. And he's going along there, and all of a sudden he ran smack right into the middle of an Indian ambush. And he got 3 javelins right in the middle of the comic cuts. Whack, whack, whack. And the blood was pouring out of him, but as I say, he was a Pony Express rider, and the mill he went on through. And he's still going along there. And all of a sudden he ran straight into another Indian ambush, and he got a tomahawk right in the middle of his head. By this time he's suffering from a split personality. But the mill kept on going through. He was a member of Equity and Financial, and he's still going on there. And the blood's pouring. He ran into another ambush, and this time another axe and a javelin in the back, in the front, where he got the message, the lot. And eventually, with the blood pouring out of him, he's dying on his horse. He gets to the fort. He hammers on the door. The commander opened the fort door and said, "Yes, what is it?" He said, "No mail today."
Well, that's one aspect of comedy today. Not less funny or less good, but different. Nevertheless, to me, the epitome of fair dinkum variety is contained in the talents and extravagances of comics like George Wallace or Moe.
You know, McKicky, there's so much beer here tonight, you're liable to finish up drunk under the table.
Lesho! How dare you? How dare you have the colossal presumption to assume that I will finish up a victim to the hops in the grip of the grape, as it were. And even if you think of such a thing, how dare you speak it out loud in front of all these charming people here? By gathering tonight, we have some of the most distinguished metho drinkers in the town. And you stand there with your tongue hanging over your tie and dare to place me in the same catechism as Bumbo, Bertie, and Metho Maud. Nasha, as I look into your pink eyes, I think you've got albino blood in your veins. I told you only lately, yes, you have nice skin. And I've come to the conclusion I know how you've got it. You've been using blood and bone compacts. Nasha, I feel sorry for your parents. No wonder they abandoned you on the doorstep of the Chinese just house. Honest, they must have thought you were a bundle of dirty laundry. It pains me to have to speak just this wise to you, Lasher. Especially... Who are you looking at, Holmes? As I said, it pains me not to speak to you on such a salubrious occasion. I'll repeat that word, ignorance. Salubrious. But your vile insinuation has cut me to the quick. Finish up. Drunk under the table, indeed. I'll pass out in the fowl house like I always do.
And there you have it. Fair Dinkum Variety, a program produced by Charles Graham and narrated by John West. We dug out these old records to remind you of 50 years of Australian entertainment. Jim McLeod played the discs, and to sign off the program, we can hardly do better than...
This is Jack Davies saying, as usual, good night, and thanks for listening.
Hooray, mate, hooray. I'll see you again.
That was a special light entertainment feature written by Charles Graham and John West. The recordings used included some from the ABC's Historical Records Library and a number of rare Australian discs kindly lent by private collectors.
This is the story of the shows that brought entertainment to the people of Australia, touring not only from city to city, but on the road from town to town, and on the track to outback settlements thousands of miles from anywhere. This is fair Dinkum variety indeed, full of the pioneering spirit that founded this colony 175 years ago. In Australia, the first touring shows went out more than 100 years ago. In the decades that followed, audiences in the most remote places, as well as in the cities, applauded companies like Cole's Bohemian Players, Mac's Varieties, Diamond's Marquee, and Barton's Follies. They got to know the circuses of Philip Worth, Souls, and Perry's, and were dazzled by perhaps the greatest touring show ever, Sawley's. Although their heyday is over, the touring shows go out still today. As I speak to you now, audiences are falling under the fascination of live entertainment in 3 dimensions, presented before their very eyes.
5'2" and eyes are blue, and oh, what those 5 feet can do. Has anybody seen my gal? Turned up nose, fancy clothes, never had no other beaux. Has anybody seen my gal? If you should run into a 5'2" covered in furs, diamond rings and all those things, bet your life that it isn't hers. Then could she love, could she woo, could she goo? Has anybody seen my gal?
The brash, brave, impudent sound of an entertainer under canvas. And how loyal many of the artists are to the touring theatre. There's more to this comment than defiant nostalgia.
Although I was with Coles in latter years when it was Cole's Varieties, and I will say that it was one of the nicest shows on the road. And people who have never seen the tents or the canvas theater, once you play them, you don't want to play the theaters anymore, because there's everything you'd want, up to scenery. The musicians they had, all good musicians in the orchestras. The lighting was wonderful, and they used to get some wonderful audiences, too.
That was comedian Bert LeBlanc, who came to Australia in 1913 for 6 months and has stayed 50 years. His tent show experience includes years with Mac's as well as Cole's Varieties. Other veterans of touring shows are here tonight to recall their early days. One of the most successful and still an active performer is the illusionist, the great Levant.
Well, when I first started in this business as a professional, there would be at least in Australia at least 50 touring shows. Bell ringers, I remember the Lynch family bell ringers and the Bryant bell ringers and the West Pictures and the Bretians. By that I mean they ran a half program of music and a half program of films. It was quite the thing to have companies of 4, 5, 6 or 7 people. It was a big company that had a dozen people, and go out into the country and play right through. Of course, in those days that there was no permanent cinemas. The cinemas used to tour too. Small Johnson Lundell dynamo with a single cylinder to D an engine and some films and a projector that stand up in a hall somewhere, and away they go. A lot of those cinema shows too that toured, they also had vocalists and acts of some kind mixed in with them.
Those pioneers really got to know their audiences. One such rugged Australian was Kate Howard, who remembers seeing her in Possum Paddock or perhaps Gumtree Gully. Kate Howard often played in barns in the sheep and cattle and wheat country. Comedian Reg Quartley was with her in the 20s on a tour which took them ultimately 60 miles back of Burke.
Round about 7 o'clock, I said to Miss Howard, "Isn't it time we opened up?" And she said, "Oh, no, not yet, Reg." She said, "It's far too early." I said, we always open the doors at 7 o'clock. She said, oh, yes, but not in the country. 8:30, she decided to open the door of the shed. Outside, she'd placed a table and a kerosene lamp. Inside, complete darkness. No light at all. I was still quite upset about this. As I say, it was the first time I'd been on tour. Anyway, about 10 minutes later, we heard the clippity-clop and clippity-clop and clippity-clop. A horse. Sure enough, the horseman arrived. In one hand, he had a kerosene lamp, and in the other hand, he had a wooden box. Tethered his horse, got down, and he knew Miss Howard. Miss Howard knew everybody throughout Australia, all her audiences. She knew them personally. Hello, Miss Howard. Good evening. How much is it to go in tonight? She looked up and down, and she said, well, 10 shillings. And, of course, in those days, 10 shillings would be about £5 to go into a theatre these days. But quite willingly, he paid his 10 shillings up and went inside. A little time later, a horse and buggy arrived. In the horse and buggy were the mum and dad and about 3 children. Each of them had a kerosene lamp. Each of them had a box or a tin. They all got off, tethered the horse again, said hello to Miss Howard, how much to go in? She looked at them, saw that they were a family. She said 10 shillings the lot.
It's worth noting, by the way, that many really big-name artists went out on the road. In 1933, the famous English male impersonator Ella Shields toured North Queensland for Stanley Mackay, another Australian pioneer showman. He recalls Ella with great affection.
She was staying at the Seaview Hotel at Townsville, and the 2 baggage men, they were always glad to take her trunk to her hotel, because she'd always give them a good tip. And this day, we finished the tour of Townsville this year, and they were taking her port, or rather her trunk, I should say, down to the truck for the last time. And one of the chaps' name was Russell. So she always called him Mr. Russell, and she slipped a note into his blazer pocket. She said, there, Mr. Russell, divide that between you and Jules. He said, oh, thank you, Miss Shields. And so anyhow, they put her baggage onto the lorry, and he took the note out. He says, cracky, he says, she's given us a dinner. And and Jules said, oh, well, I thought she'd always do something like that. So they quick and lively went into the hotel to get the change and celebrate. But before they got their change, an irate lady was rushing down the stairs. She called out, Mr. Russell, Mr. Russell. Yes, Miss Shields. I gave you a £10 note. Yes, Miss Shields. Oh, she says, I'm not that rich. I thought it was 10 shillings. So the millionaires, for 5 minutes, handed her back £9.10.
I'm Burlington Bertie. I rise at 10:30, then saunter along like a tog. I walk down the Strand with my gloves on my hands, and I walk down again with them off. I'm all airs and graces, correct easy paces. So long without food, I forgot where my face is. I'm Bert, I haven't a shirt, but my people are well off, you know. Nearly everyone knows me, from Smith to Lord Rosebery. I'm Burlington Bertie from Bow.
Touring in the old days did have its hazards, financially speaking. The actors in the old melodramas, popular in the first decades of this century, were often sustained solely by their enthusiasm for the job. They had to be because frequently the ghost would forget to walk. Over 60 years ago, veteran actor Vivian Edwards toured from Melbourne to Perth in a makeshift company, the manager of which, he recalls, didn't enjoy paying the cast.
didn't like to pay out money. It always seemed to hurt him. He'd say, how much can you do with Mr. Edwards? Well, I said, it's 4 bob from the pub and so, and I want a drink. So they do. So then we pay it out and he said, there you are. He used to put up notices to say that the treasury will be after the show. Well, of course, he always pulled it down before the last act, and he put it up one night, and I said, what are you sticking that thing up for? You'd only put it down again. He said, well, you're very rude, Mr. Edwards. For 2 pins, I'd take the company back to Melbourne. I said, as much as you can do to get to the next town.
The actor on tour had to be ready to cover up when scenery went astray in transit or some minor calamity occurred, like on this occasion when the plot called for live pigeons.
The pigeons, of course, were the curtain rose in the first act, immediately flew out into the audience and sat up on the chandeliers until the last act. And the last act, we were supposed to be miles out at sea. And I had a very beautiful reconciliation scene in the play with my long-lost husband, clasped to his bosom. At that beautiful moment, one of the pigeons flew down and sat on my head. And I had very long hair, and the pigeon became entangled in this long hair. It was perfectly frightful. The hero had to disentangle the bird from my hair. And luckily he had a great sense of humour, and he said, my dear, even the seabirds love you.
The actress with seabirds in her hair on that occasion was Agnes Dodson, who did her apprenticeship in melodrama, which reminds me that one of the greatest practitioners of melodrama was Edward Irem Coles, nicknamed the Bohemian because of his shoulder-length mane of hair. Cole's Bohemian players brought Wild West and bushranger stories like Buffalo Bill and the Kelly Gang to audiences from Western Australia to Queensland. When talkies killed the touring melodramas, Coles, like other tent shows, switched to variety. Adding 1 or 2 pieces to their orchestras, they converted them at one stroke from entr'acte players into that mysterious body of men, the pit band, whose weirdly evocative charm is the essence of show business. It's amazing to know how far into Australia the early shows went. Les Levant, how far west did you go?
In 1923, I took the first show overland from Perth in Western Australia to Broome. And that was quite a feat, I might tell you. And we played up through the back blocks, through Onslow, and in the dining rooms, and pushed the tables together to make a stage. I recall the occasion when we arrived in Port Hedland, and we were 3 days late getting there because the motor vehicle we had wasn't of the best. It was an old Ford that was getting stuck in the sand quite a lot. And when I arrived there and had a look, we got in there about 7 o'clock in the evening, and by the time we had some food and a shower and cleaned up a bit, the town was there. They said, well, what about the show? So I said, oh, what, tonight? It was in about 9 o'clock. And they said, oh, yes, there's a lot of people in from the country, and some of them have come in 400 miles. So I went round and had a look at the hall, and there was no stage. So I said, oh, there's no stage. That's going to be a bit awkward. They said, oh, you want a stage? So a couple of trucks appeared. They went down to the railway yards, brought up sleepers, whilst another truck brought in hogsheads that we used with beer. And before I knew where I was, the hogsheads had been upended, the sleepers were placed across them, and some tarpaulins from the railway had been spread over them, and we had a stage. So we started the show somewhere around about 10:30 and finished in the early hours of the morning. And I always recall the fact that I had a comedian with me named Monty Ford, an Englishman, and a very, very funny man. We called him Rubber-Faced Ford. And keep in mind the fact that Port Headland had never seen a show. And I remember a Chinese boy falling off a chair, shrieking with laughter. A boy, a young man, about 20-odd years of age. So we did that show. The price in those days was 10 shillings for whites and 2 shillings for the Aboriginals. Anyhow, we played 4 nights there, and then I went on to Broome, and I stayed 3 months in Broome. I was there for the pearling layup.
In the same year that the Great Levant was bewildering the pearl fishers of Broome, one of the biggest city attractions was Australia's greatest vaudeville team of Stiffy and Moe.
I am the Pirate King. I am a pirate. Hey! Awake, ye demons of the deep.
Who the hell's that, I wonder?
Don't you know me? I'm Pedro the Pirate.
How do you do?
You know what a pirate is?
Yes.
What?
A fellow who picks up girls in Pitt Street.
No, not that kind of a pirate.
No.
I'm a dirty, low-down, conniving sort of a pirate.
You look every inch of it, too.
You know what I've done in the China Sea?
No.
I've taken a little baby girl, 6 months old.
Oh, that's young enough. You don't want any younger than that.
Thrown her overboard, and the sharks get them.
They don't do that in Sydney.
No.
Oh, no, they wait till they get about 18-year-olds, then the sharks get them.
The team of Stiffy and Moe came to life in 1916. Both performers were already well known, but they had never worked together. Nat Phillips and his wife Daisy Merritt had a double act, and Roy Reen, whose real name was Harry van der Sluis, was working as a single. They teamed up at the Princess Theatre, Sydney, and front-of-house man Bill Sadler came up with a name for the new partners.
I did not call Nat Phillips Stiffy. He had that name. But he handed me a photograph dressed up as a rabbit-ho, and it had at the bottom Stiffy. So the matinee was coming on, so I thought I'd go round and see Roy Reen, see if he was going to have a nickname. And I said, Roy, what about a nickname? There's a photo with Stiffy on it. And he said, oh, well, Stiffy and Ikey. And he's putting on his Moe. So I said, what about Moe, Stiffy and Moe? He said, that'll do. So I come round the front and I rung up the printer and got it altered and it was Stiffy and Moe, and that's how he got his name.
The partnership of Stiffy and Moe flourished from the first, and after a decade of success, Roy Reen added to it by marrying Sadie Gale, daughter of comedian Sam Gale.
I first met Roy when I was with Fuller in New Zealand doing a double act with my mother. I don't remember too much about it. We've discussed it over the years, but I don't remember really much until he was doing an act with Fred Blewett, the late Fred Blewett. And I met him one day in the street with my mother, and really my mother was a great fan of Roy's, and they always used to laugh, and he used to always put on an act for my mother because she was a wonderful audience for him. And that was really the way I only remember meeting Roy. I was out at Newtown with Elton Black's company after having done a Hugh J. Ward show called The Rise of Rosie O'Reilly. And then I was told the next week when I went to rehearsal that I had to report for rehearsals with Stiffy and Moe, and I thought, what is this? And I remember walking up to the National Theatre that it was then, which is now the Mayfair, and he was standing on the curb talking to somebody. They just finished rehearsal, and I said, oh, Mr. Reen, could you tell me where I'd find Mr. Phillips? He said, yes, I think he's on the stage, love.
Roy Reen, to this day, has the reputation of having been a blue comedian, but people are fond of ascribing all kinds of jokes to him which he never, in fact, told. Was Roy so blue, Sadie?
Well, I suppose he was, to a certain extent. But people said Mo said this and Mo said that. He didn't. All he did was arch his eyebrows and give them the wink. It was up to them, as he said in his book. It was up to the audience the way they took it. It was their own minds. He didn't say it. And after all, Roy was a very quiet man. He was very narrow-minded. He was a very strict father. But he gave the public what they wanted. And after all, that was his living.
Sir, I'm bound to have a eucalyptus, baby. Well, I'll see what Mr. Lang can do. Would you like a eucalyptus, baby? A eucalyptus, baby, like you. Yes, I like a eucalyptus, baby, providing that it's not a Jew. Would you nurse a eucalyptus, baby? You never know what it might do. If you'd like a eucalyptus, baby, I'll see what Mr. Lang can do.
In 1931, the drawing power of Mo at the box office clinched the success of the vaudeville revival of Mike Connors and Queenie Paul, who opened their theatre doors to depression audiences hungry for laughter. Queenie Paul revives now a song she sang in the Haymarket Theatre, Sydney, in 1931. To survive, Australian performers have always had to be troopers in the real sense of the word. After Mo and Sadie Gale were married, they did a honeymoon tour into northern Queensland for Harry Clay, doing 3-night stands as far north as Cairns, often playing in open-air theatres. Then they came back to the King's Melbourne for Frank Neal's show Clowns in Clover. Opposite Roy in Clowns in Clover was the lugubrious comedian Hector Sinclair.
Oh, never mind if things look glum. You're sure to find there's worse to come. Ta-da! Behind the silver lining, there are black clouds overhead. Da-da-da-da! So there's no doubt when up the spout, tomorrow you'll be down and out. But there's this consolation that you'll soon be dead. I have some more joyful tidings like that. I am the happiest corpse in the morgue as I jump from slab to slab. Ooh, cut that out, that's rotten. Stop that coughing. Now we'll rehearse. That's good. Cough and rehearse. And put some body into this. There is no fun in a cemetery, so give me my flowers now. Written by George Graves. My father had no whiskers, so he grew some.
Hector Sinclair was one of the few of the older Australian performers who made records. Most of them sang their songs live, and that's the only way the public heard them. Charlie Lawrence reminds us.
In those days, remember, no radio, even no gramophones. And we were the people who introduced the new songs, the popular songs. And they were a darn sight better than what they call popular songs today. But we introduced them. Things like, I'm thinking of popular ones. Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey? Ragtime Cowboy Joe. That was a popular one. They liked that in the country. And the other ragtime, Alexander's Ragtime Band.
The managers who took shows out back had boundless courage and enthusiasm, as did the performers with them, like Bert LeBlanc.
They took the town hall at Rockhampton. Well, they had no scenery. Newton, Billy Carroll, he loaned them a bit of scenery, another big good tent man who's passed on. And he always was a lovely fellow, too, the same Billy Carroll. He loaned them some scenery. And they borrowed a couple of tabs somewhere from the local dancing teacher, and we had got the local ballet from Rockhampton. Of course, they couldn't rehearse till the laundries let out at about 6 o'clock. And they got the local contralto. The acrobats were comics, and Les Levant was my feeder. And they got a Sue Brett come along there, and she tried out, and I said, what do you do? She says, I sing I'm waiting for ships that never come in. And after I heard her, I says, the ships don't come in here either. During the daytime, she was on the showground, and they threw knives at her head. I don't know how they ever missed. But however, she was the Sue Brett. Well, we went on there, and that night, the first night, the curtain went up. One of the owners had threepence in his pocket, and the other fellow had a zack. They had ninepence between them. And that opening night, on my word of honor, there was 65 pounds in the house.
And 65 pounds represented wealth. One of the comedy teams to tour North Queensland was Joe Brennan and Ida Newton with Branscom's Dandies. Joe was at his funniest with a battered helmet and a uniform as a rather reluctant fireman.
Go on, you kids, get away from there. Being up against the fire station, he'll have it over in a minute.
Excuse me. Is this the fire station?
Of course it's the fire station.
Well, I represent the Daily Mail, and my editors asked me to write a leading article on all the fire stations of the state.
Of course it's the fire station you want.
Of course it's the fire station I want.
We've often been taken for window cleaners, you know.
First of all, I should like to see the engine.
Now, come away from there, come away. It's only tied up with string. We got a third hand from Warrior. After I had an accident with it. Sometimes when they're not busy, I run it out and have a ride on it. Come over here. You don't seem to understand. Now, when that bell rings, I answer the phone, and then I put that plug in there.
So what does that do?
Oh, well, it doesn't do anything, but it looks so untidy hanging down.
You'll never get to the fire to be of any use.
No, you see, the houses are so small here, they burn down before we ever get there.
Yes. Well, then what's the good of you?
Oh, I don't know. We look very nice in a procession. They usually put us in between the journalists and the temperance union.
Well, now, I I should like to see inside that engine.
Now, come away from here. Come away. You'll frighten me ends.
What?
I've got a couple of ends sitting in there.
You don't tell me that.
Well, what does it matter when we're not busy?
Now, tell me, when did you receive your last call?
Well, about a few months ago, we got a call to say there's top of the hill, and I calls out the corpse.
Pardon me, that word is pronounced core.
I always calls it corpse. Means a body of men, don't it?
Now, which was the biggest fire you ever had?
Well, biggest fire we ever had was the public baths. All we had to do was to push the burning building into the baths and go home. Hello. There, telephone. Hello? Yes? I know all about that, but we can't come at a moment's notice, you know. I'll tell you what to do. You write into me, and I'll give you a form to fill up. And then I'll put it before the council. And if we're not busy, we'll come. What's that? The top story's gone. Oh, good. We won't need the ladders now. What street did you say it was? Oh, we never go down that street. Now, is there anything else you'd like to know, miss?
Certainly not. It's a disgrace. Fancy a fire station like this in 1963. It's a disgrace, man. And you, I say, just look at you. There you stand when you hear that bell calling you to save life and property. You should be ready, man. Ready, up and away.
Oh, that settles it. Horace, get those ends out. I'm a fireman. I've told you that before. And now you know I'm a fireman, I won't tell you anymore.
During World War II, a new version of the touring shows was born with the Army Entertainment Units under Lieutenant Colonel Jim Gerald, who brought all his experience as a comedian into organizing shows for the troops. Army shows played anywhere there were enough soldiers to make up an audience, as George Wallace Jr. recalls.
When we went out as what they call troubadour shows. They split the show up. That would possibly be the comic, a magician and an accordion player would go to one area, then a singer and another instrumentalist to another area, and there we would just go out, whether it be in a jeep or sometimes in those army ducks, we would go across the water, out to these outposts. We did a show one night, and I remember there were only 6 of us, and we were working, and we weren't allowed to have any lights, of course. They said no lights. I said, how are they going to see? And he said, well, if you speak, the lieutenant or colonel in charge said, if you speak in a very soft voice, he said, we'll get pretty close to you. And it was an experience. And he said, every now and again, he said, if you can just wave, give a little wave, he said, up towards the hills up there. He said, I would appreciate it. So we did the show, and I put in a few waves here and there. And when it was over, I said, well, some of our boys are up there. He said, oh, no, the Japs are up there. I said, you mean to say they're Japanese? He said, well, he said, they have field glasses. He said, and there's enough light from the few cars that are on you now. He said, and they watch the entertainment. He said, and we wave to them now and again. I said, what about the fighting? He said, well, as soon as something lets fly, he said, it's on again. But he said, but after that, we wave to each other.
Another comedian who entertained wartime audiences was Max Reddy with his wife Stella Lamond. For the last 12 years, they've been taking shows each year to tour Tasmania. Like all entrepreneurs, they've had good years and bad years.
You've got to be very careful what towns you go to, when you go and how you go, because you'll always find that Mr. Jones had a euchre party the night before you got there.
Oh, what about the year we had the fire?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, we had a fire one year and lost everything. lost all the wardrobe and everything between Queenstown and Launceston. That was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We never had one costume for the girls. Gus Brock's xylophone was half burnt, and we went on at 8 o'clock. We went round all the amateur companies and we borrowed curtains and we borrowed a couple of little outfits, and the girls put a blue bow on this and a pink bow for the next number and a yellow bow for the next number. We got through the show, okay?
The stage
we went up
door,
at a minute past 8.
Yes, the stage door was absolutely inundated with people coming in and saying, I believe you've had a fire and you haven't got any wardrobe. Well, my Elsie, she's got some nice little frocks there. You can borrow those with pleasure. And everybody in Launceston seemed to rally round. Up went the curtain.
Marvellous, wasn't it?
Audiences for touring shows like their humour broad and their music tuneful, and they relish this sort of song routine.
I love that dear. I love the city where the girls are very pretty and I love the lights on the town. I love that ship. I love the hustle and the bustle and the tussle and I love to hear the rustle of a gown. I seem to hear. I love the ladies and I'm always playing Hades and I'm gonna make a shine. I'm gonna buy 'em wine. The sky's the limit and will treat me to the minute. For I tell you one, the life will look will be the very devil. I know the places where we see the pretty faces where there's music and laughter and song. And where the sun we won't go home till morning till the break of day is dawning. So come on along, come on along. I miss that way. A go remaining or a pretty little fancy walking up the Piccadilly makes me absolutely silly. I forget about the dear old home of mine.
Without doubt, the best-known roadshow in Australia is Sawley's, which is touring again this year under new management. George Sawley began it during the First World War, playing melodrama. He was a fine performer, actor, comedian, acrobat, and singer, with a wistful charm all his own.
You may not be an angel, 'cause angels are so few. But until the day that one comes along, I'll string along with you. I'm looking for an angel to sing my love song to. And until the day that one comes along, I'll sing my song to you. For every little fault that you have, say I've got 3 or 4. The human little faults you do have just make me love you more. You may not be an angel, but still I'm sure you'll do. So until the day that one comes along, I'll string along with you.
Nobody has an ill word to say of George Sawley. All his contemporaries agree he was a fine performer, a great showman, and a gentleman. After Sawley's death in 1948, comedian Bobby LeBrun became part owner of the show with Mrs. Grace Sawley.
One of the interesting sites was at Bundaberg. We used to call it the Battle of Bundaberg. The entire bank of the river was reserved for tent shows, and they used to be almost peg to peg. And on one year there, I think it was about 1933 or 34, there was no less than 9 tents. There was that year there was Barton's Follies, Sawley's, a show called the Cameos. I think it was Tommy Henley's Buck Jump Show, Ferry Circus with 2 tents, an animal tent and the Mo Big Top, Stanley Mackay, and Cole's Varieties, and they were all on this one allotment, almost peg to peg. And the entire population of Bundaberg used to go down onto the riverbank, and they all had megaphones, and each show had a band playing outside. It was a wonderful sight, probably unique in the world. And each one calling out, this is the best show, and this way to the show, you know. There were no loudspeakers in the early days, of course. And George Sawley stole a march on them. One year at the Battle of Bundaberg, he produced the first public address system. We'd seen this big box hidden away in the dressing room all through the tour, and we all wondered what it was. And he said, you'll find out later. And he produced it in Bundaberg, and that year he swamped all the speakers with their megaphones right out of business. Of course, next year they all turned up with PA systems, but George had the first one.
Even Sawley's competitors on the road were friendly competitors. Here's what Stanley Mackay, Charlie Lawrence, and the great Levant thought of him.
George used to say, we both announced each other's shows, and I remember one night in
Orange. He was announcing my show. And he said, you know, Stanley and I are our only enemies between 7 and 8 o'clock at night. That's when our bell ringers were out telling them all about what wonderful shows we had, you see.
I was burnt out in Adelaide, went up to Broken Hill. And we arrived there on the Friday to open on the Saturday. George had a big tent show there. We went to see it. Cutting it short, he called me up onto the platform. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, the finest show you have ever seen in Broken Hill opens here tomorrow night at the Crystal Palace. Now, don't forget, he was still showing in the town that next night. He said, whatever you do, not only go yourself, but take your friends, and don't miss this. Now, I wonder would you find that camaraderie among show people today?
Oh, George and I were great friends. I had known George from the early days of Harry Clay in the Clay Theatres here in Sydney, and George was a very, very good performer and a charming gentleman. And he came from Liverpool. Well, as I tell you, George offered me his touring tent outfit before ever I bought the Igloo for £6,000, and I should have bought it because I could have bought the Sawley name, their storeroom in Balmain, their 2 tents, the everything. George was interested in building that village called Sawleyville over on the north side of the harbour, and he thought that he wouldn't have to bother about touring anymore, and he was quite right too. Unfortunately, the Sawleyville thing didn't turn out quite the way he expected, but it has since, of course, and poor George developed a coronary and he passed out. I think that it would be quite safe to say that George Sawley would be perhaps the master of touring theatres. He knew every angle to it. He'd grown up with it from Philip Lytton. Philip Lytton was one of the earliest touring fellows with Canvas, and he ran dramatic shows. And he engaged George to play the part of Uncle Tom in Uncle Tom's Cabin, which George was quite successful too. And when Philip Lytton went out of the business, George carried on doing dramatic shows. Then when the drama fell down, which would be caused, of course, from the influx of the cinema, then George switched over to a variety show.
Tiny little toes, a turned up shiny little nose. To me she's mighty like a rose, and everybody knows she's beautiful, yes, beautiful. Mighty hard to make, but doggone mighty good to take. The day that she belongs to me, I'm going to try and be so beautiful. She's got a marvelous this and such a wonderful that. Just wait until you see. She's a little bit good and a little bit bad, but she's first-class company. I'm going to get a ring. We'll see the parson in the spring. The bells will ting-a-ling-a-ling, 'cause every little thing will be beautiful. Did it remind you of somebody, huh? I'll tell you some more. Oh, boy, talk about joy. I'm just running wild. Ever since I fell in love with this gorgeous child. I've heard a lot about happiness, but never knew till she said yes. I'll tell the world that I know now. Am I glad and how? Tiny little toes, a turned up shiny little nose. To me, she's mighty like a rose, and everybody knows she's beautiful, yes, beautiful. Mighty hard to make, but doggone mighty good to take. The day that she belongs to me, I'm going to try and be so beautiful. She's got a marvelous this and such a wonderful that. Just wait until you see. She's a little bit good and just a little bit bad, but she's first-class company. I'm going to get a ring. We'll see the parson in the spring. The wedding bells will ting-a-ling, and every little thing will be beautiful. Yes, beautiful. B-E-A-U-T-I-F-U-L spells beautiful.
But I do want to impress upon you that those early shows were a very big thing in the life of this country. They did a lot. They were the one break many little towns got once maybe in 6 months, and how they look forward to and how good they were to you. But do remember that when you think of what's here today, remember the job that those early people did.
story of the touring shows in Australia was written by John West and Charles Graham. The voices of the pioneer showmen and artists were introduced by John West, and Fair Dinkum Variety was produced in Sydney for the Australian Broadcasting Commission by Charles Graham.
Voice of Jack Davy, a voice that spanned the great years of radio entertainment in Australia, a voice to introduce the 1964 edition of Fair Dinkum Variety, 30 years of wireless, from cat's whisker to cathode tube.
Wishing will make it so. Just keep on wishing, and care will go. Dreamers tell us dreams come true. It's no mistake. And wishes are the dreams we dream when we're away. The curtain of night will pass.
The first systematic broadcasting service in Australia was launched at 8 o'clock on the night of November the 23rd, 1923. Station 2SB, Sydney, was on the air, and the era of wireless entertainment had begun. For the first time, audiences were being pursued into their very own homes. Soon, 2SB adopted a new call sign, 2BL. Soon, more stations were opened, 2FC, 3AR, and 6WF. By 1929, the wireless had become a part of our daily life. Listening audiences had increased tenfold in 5 years, and the Australian Broadcasting Company was formed.
Station 3LO Melbourne, Australian Broadcasting Company Limited, supplying the National Broadcasting Service of Australia and transmitting on 371 meters.
That was the voice of Frank Hatherley. On July the 1st, 1932, the Australian Broadcasting Commission was set up by Act of Parliament. One of the artists on our opening night was the singer of Wishing a moment ago, Jack Davy. The ABC's present Assistant Director of Light Entertainment, Bruce Webber, recalls a sequel to that inaugural broadcast.
Jack Davy sang for us on July the 1st, 1932, the day the Australian Broadcasting Commission took over from the former Australian Broadcasting Company. The transmission log for that date carries the entry, J. Davy Crooner, and beside it his fee, 1 guinea. 25 years later, when I was a television producer, I rang Jack and asked him if he could remember the song he sang on that first broadcast. Oh, of course, he said. It was, I Can't Give You Anything But Love. Well, I then asked him if he'd be willing to sing the same tune on my television program, which was commemorating the anniversary. Despite the fact that in the intervening years, Jack had had little association with the Commission and had made his name in the big quiz shows on commercial networks, he readily agreed, and he flung himself enthusiastically into a hard grind of rehearsals for this live television appearance. After he'd sung the number, and Jack was quite emotionally moved by this reminder of his early years in show business, I'd arranged that the general manager of the ABC, Mr. Charles Moses, should join him in front of camera and thank Jack for his appearance. Well, in the course of his thanks, Mr. Moses made reference to Jack's increased status as an artist since his previous appearance with us, and in view of this and the increased cost of living in the interim, he presented him with a cheque for his services which was exactly double the sum received in 1932, namely 2 guineas. Well, this was manna for Jack Davy's razor-sharp wit, and in the ensuing few minutes there followed some brilliant spontaneous humour, which producers, I know, would have paid a lot of money to have had scripted for them. The story doesn't quite finish there. For some months later, Jack Davy rang me up and asked me to get the ABC's accountants off his back. It appeared that their concern was to know when he intended cashing the cheque. His failure was mucking up the records. Jack's answer was typical. Tell them never, he said. It's currently in a gold frame on my lounge room wall.
And here's how Jack Davy sounded in 1932, in this rare recording he made with Maury Gilman's orchestra. The song was written by an Australian, Noel Judd.
I've got a new song, another blues song, but it's not because I'm feeling blue. Goodbye, depression, I've got possession of a happiness entirely new. But the reason for this happiness, I'll leave to you to guess. Young men gay and sporty, fat men over 40, we love the cosmopolitan blues. Men 6 feet and taller, men 4 feet and smaller, don't you wish that you were in our shoes? Thin men, fat men, giant men and flat men, normal men and crooners on the air. We're admired and our happiness inspired by that something so completely new and rare. You've heard our exclamation about this new creation, these blues that you will never want to lose. And with the coming season, you'll soon find out the reason. What are these cosmopolitan blues?
Listeners to the Wireless in 1932 heard the excitement of the opening of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which event inspired a topical ditty recorded by Len Maurice and Cyril James of 2GB, under the names of Quip and Quirk.
Hello. Is that Colonel Campbell?
Yes. Who's that?
Oh, this is Mr. Lang. Oh, Colonel Campbell.
Yes, Mr. Lang.
Why don't you scramble your precious gang? They have been a source of worry since we opened up the bridge, and the way they cut that ribbon was a downright sacrilege.
But, Mr. Lang, you were astute. You prosecuted my friend the Groot. Then for doing what he did, why, the court fined him 5 quid.
Did that please you, Colonel Campbell?
It was worth it, Mr. Lang.
Radio entertainers of the day often came from the stage. To name some names, Fred Blewett, Ada Reeve, Peter Dawson, Victor Gourier, Walter Kingsley, and Arthur Hemsley. These and many others were no strangers to the old powdered carbon microphones, which often required a good shake to make them work properly. Military bands kept popping up with remarkable frequency, and none was more popular than the ABC National Military Band, conducted by Stephen York. Symptomatic of the times was the great following enjoyed by community singing concerts. Crowds packed into town halls to sing lustily under the encouragement of compeers like Frank Hatherley, Charlie Lawrence, and Bryson Taylor. Often there were guest singers, Dorothy Brunton, say, or Grace Quine. One of the sweetest voices belonged to Amy Ostinger.
Most things in life I've plenty of. What good friends stand on the other if you haven't got love? 3 meals a day, a roof above. What good friends stand on the other if you haven't got love? Life is sweet, but love provides the best of it. Give me love, and you can keep the rest of it. I'd have the best of it. For love and joy go hand in glove. What good friends stand on the other if you haven't got love?
The 30s all round Australia saw a lively succession of breakfast session personalities with enormous followings. In Sydney, 2GB at various times had Jack Davy, Jack Lumsden, and Len Maurice. All of them found greater fame as nighttime performers. Len Maurice became one of the best-known wireless singers of the decade. This is an ingenuous song he once recorded with the 2FC Studio Dance Orchestra.
Oh, Sydney, I love you. Oh, Sydney, I do. I love the smiling sky above you, and your sea on the sapphire blue. And wherever I may look, there's the cranny or a nook where your storied romance grew. I love every winding bay, they delight me every way, but most of all I love just you.
Jack Lumsden was a professional to his back teeth. His sessions of songs at the piano often included his own original compositions. No one who ever heard him could fail to recognize the voice of the radio rascal.
They called me Scallywag. The people always call me Scallywag. That's me, you see, because I'm never out of trouble. It's always been the same. No matter where I go, the folks, they all give me the name of Scallywag. Though I have got no money, Scallywag, I find that life is sunny, and though often I'm without a fag, but if there's fighting to be done, or a battle to be won, you'll find a good-for-nothing, tough and bluffin' Scallywag. The people always call me Scallywag. That's me, you see, because I'm never out of trouble. It's always been the same. No matter where I go, the folks, they all give me the name of Scallywag. Though I have got no money, Scallywag, I find that life is sunny, and though often I'm without a fag, but if there's fighting to be done, or a battle to be won, you'll find a good-for-nothing, tough and bluffin' Scallywag.
In popular orchestral music, the field was dominated by the dance orchestras, led by Cess Morrison, Cecil Fraser, and Howard Jacobs, to name a few, and especially by Jim Davidson.
Oh, my search will never cease for the girl on the Police Gazette, for the pretty young brunette on the pink Police Gazette. And above my mantelpiece, there's a page of the Police Gazette with the pretty young brunette on the pink Police Gazette. I love to stop at my favorite barber shop just to take another look at the girl that I haven't met yet, and my longing will increase for the girl on the Police Gazette, for the pretty young brunette on the pink Police Gazette.
Vocalist with the Davidson Orchestra then was Dick Cranbourne. 2FC listeners in the 30s had a great affection for Watto, the unpredictable personality who conducted the breakfast session. One morning in 1937, the ABC rebroadcast from London the lighting up of the fleet at the spectacular Spithead Naval Review. Alas, the BBC commentator was himself spectacularly lit up. And after the relay was hurriedly terminated by the BBC, Watto in Sydney came on the air to say,
Time is 11 minutes to 8 Sydney time. Well, that, as you probably heard, was the description of the lighting up of the Royal Fleet with that. A little bit of static about it, I think. Well, now, today's beautiful folk. Today's beautiful folk. Now that we've heard the fleet lit up, we haven't had that beautiful thought, have we? Well, here it is. Half the failures in life arise from pulling in one's horse's head just as he's leaping.
The 30s saw the rise of several great serials, which, because they were so vastly popular, can be included in this look at radio variety. George Edwards, the man with 1,000 voices, was responsible for some of them, notably the perennial Dad and Dave.
All right, Dad, that price will do me nicely. 1,500 quid is all I want, and you can have it on cash or terms.
Hey, Terry, do you know what you're doing?
Well, he says he'll sell for 1,500 quid. It's dirt cheap at that price, Dan.
Too cheap. I couldn't let you sell at that price, Terry.
Well, it's all I want, Dad. It's just a place for Dave when he marries and settles down.
Well, I'm not going to marry and settle down yet, Terry. We don't want the place.
Well, why did you get me over here? Why did Dad say he'd give me 1,500 quid for it?
Did I say that?
Too right you did.
Now, listen, Terry, you don't want to sell that place. It's too good a proposition to sell at that price. Hang on to it a bit and, well, you'll get more money than that.
Well, don't you think I'm asking enough?
Well, I want you to look after yourself. You know, it's silly to take 1,500 quid.
Well, that's all I want. I thought you were a shrewd head, Dad.
I'm as shrewd as any farmer round about these parts.
Hey, listen, Terry. You go and see if you can give Mum a hand with the supper. You see, Dad and I have to have a private talk about this. It's business.
I understand. Well, you talk over the price and I'll go and have a yarn with Mum. I'll guarantee she thinks it's cheap and Mum knows values about here.
Hey, wait a minute. Now, don't you tell Mum that price.
Why not?
Oh, well, you know what it is. This is business between men.
Well, I'm going to ask Mum's advice about it. You've got no secrets from her, have you, Dad?
Of course I haven't. Who said I had any secrets from her? All right, you go and talk it over with her and leave Dave and me together.
Every housewife who's ever had a little gossip over the backyard fence must have felt some touch of affinity with that garrulous pair, Mrs. Harris and Mrs. Higgs, even though the two chatty ladies were in real life two gentlemen, Ethel Tier and Dan Agar. Later on, Dan Agar created another unforgettable female character in the endearing shape of Mrs. Hobbs.
It won't be a big wash, it won't be a big wash, it won't be a big wash. Hardly light yet. It won't be a big wash, it won't be a big...
Mrs. Hobbs! Mrs. Hobbs!
Aye? Yeah, hello, Mrs. Bottomley. What are you doing standing outside at 5:30 in the morning?
Don't sing it up, Mrs. Hobbs. Come halfway over the road. Come on.
What are you doing out at this time in the morning?
Well, my Bottomley made me come out and wait for the paper, Mrs. Hobbs. He goes real mad, you know, when it ain't here by the time his breakfast is ready. I'll be frightened to go inside if it ain't here in another 5 minutes or so. You going to Mrs. Jupley's now?
Yes, 5 o'clock she said to be there. It's only 1:30 anyhow. To think that I got to go and do her washing for her.
Oh, that's a good job. That's a good job.
Yeah, aye.
Here's the paper boy now coming round the corner. Oh, that's a relief, Mrs. Hobbs. Oh, well, here he comes. I'll get back to my place now and get the paper into my Bottomley. I might see you during the day, Mrs. Hobbs.
All right. I don't know. Why don't her Bottomley get sick instead of my Hobbs? I don't know, I'm sure. I wouldn't have to go and do this then. It won't be a big wash. It won't be a big wash. Oh, well, here's her place. I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't even up yet. It ain't my fault if she ain't up yet. I can say I was here at 4 o'clock and couldn't make no one here.
Dan Agar was another of the stage performers who settled into Australian radio. So, too, was Charlie Ford, star of The Minstrels on 3DB Melbourne. Charlie Ford was one of the most famous blackface comics in Australia, and he brought his immaculate timing and experience into the radio shows.
Why, say, Bones, which do you think are the best 10 years of a woman's life?
That's easy, boy. The best 10 years of a woman's life is between 29 and 30. This is not ragtime, but it should reach Grandfather's shirt. A grandfather's shirt was too long for his son. To his grandson he then passed it on. He said, I would like that shirt to be worn by someone when I'm dead and gone. Though it's frail in the tail, it will wear without fail. It's roomy, it's long, and it's wide. It's been worn, torn from night till early morn since the old man died. Oh, you'll hear mother patching it. With bits of skirt she's matching it. It's been used, abused, but never yet refused as the old man should. Tales of Hoffman. When the family went out camping, we used it for a tent, though we felt it very drafty round the tail. The buttonholes were windows and the collar was a vent. Then somebody in it stuck a nail. Mum was cosy and warm, but she thought she struck a storm. For the nail, it was sharp and it hurt. From a dream came a stream. Oh, they've got me in the seam of me grandfather's shirt. Oh, the wind, it did roar a bit. Toward the early door of it. Mum, like Eve, went home in the sleeve of my grandfather's shirt. Mum had a stitch in the side. It's been used for a duster, it's been used for a towel, it's been used as a sail on a cruise. It went to the war with me dear old Uncle Hal, he used it often for a flag of truce. Last Christmas Eve, we cut off half a sleeve, for Mother thought the linen, it was good. It was tough, rough, and had to do its stuff as a pudding cloth to boil the Christmas wood. Oh, we've made a bathing suit of it, and made a parachute of it. A flag, a gag, and it's been a water bag as grandfather's shirt. It's been an elephant skin in pantomime, and as a skirt to dance the serpentine. It's been a wrap, a cap, and it's been a baby's boot as the grandfather's shirt.
The beginning of the war brought back to Australia many of our performers who'd been trying their luck overseas. Their return helped Australian radio a lot. In 1940 came a new departure in wireless entertainment. Harry Pringle produced for the ABC the first star-studded audience participation variety show. It was called Out of the Bag. The lineup of talent to appear in this series included Peter Finch, Ron Randall, Kitty Blewett, and Neva Carr-Glynn. Wilfred Thomas was the compere, and one of the principal funny men, who had graduated from being the singing saxophonist with the Melbourne Symphony Dance Band in 1935, was Dick Bentley.
Private Smith was very much in love with Sarah. Every night you'd hear him serenade, 'cause Sarah is the cookie in the old brigade. Sarah, Sarah, ain't you coming out tonight? Sarah, Sarah, it's lovely in the pale moonlight. When we kiss and cuddle on the old back porch, tell your little brother not to shine his torch. Sarah, Sarah, ain't you coming out tonight? Ain't you coming out tonight?
Another member of the Out of the Bag cast was vaudevillian Mike Connors, who throughout the 40s commanded an affectionate following from the Prime Minister down for his genial good humor in the ABC breakfast session. After his first bout of serious illness, he broadcast a New Year's message to his friends.
Good morning, and I hope it's a bright and happy good morning for everybody in hospital and those who may be ill at home or anywhere else. I've had my first real illness, and I certainly can sympathize with every one of you, and I hope and pray that God will help you. Well, here I am, back on deck again, and I'm very thankful, because my doctors tell me that I was desperately ill. But thanks to their fine work, and to my nurses, and to my loving wife, who's just been an angel to me, and to your many good wishes and prayers, I'm feeling pretty good again. And I also want to thank our Director of Light Entertainment, Harry Pringle, for his kind help and encouragement to my wife and family and myself, which I shall never forget. Oh, and by the way, remember those little sparklers I used to read to you, the words of advice I gave? Well, I practiced them myself, and they certainly did help. And they'll help you, too. You just keep your spirit up. Think of nothing but getting well, and I'll give you my word that you'll come through. And for goodness sake, don't worry about getting thin. You know, I got so thin that one morning when the nurse was washing me, she washed my face, then turned down the covers and said, come, Mr. Connors, this is no time for jokes. Where's your body?
Another ABC variety show of the early war years was Searchlights Over London, written by John MacLeod and starring Fred Blewett. His famous daughter, Kitty, recalls for us what life was like for a small girl in the Blewett household.
My father didn't want me to be a child performer in this business because often, in rare cases such as, let's take Miss Temple, Shirley Temple, the greatest of them all. As a young lady, was a very sweet young lady, but I think that talent drains out in time, you know, and my father thought that anyway about child performers, so he let me do that little itty-bitty bit and a couple of other itty-bitty bits, then nothing else. So my home life was sitting at the table listening to my father and my brother saying, no, you don't do a gag that way, you do it this way. No, Dad, you're planting it too much. And I think that variety started when I was 2.5 and at the table and coming home from school, they were still arguing about sketches.
Around this time, Paul Jacklin was producing Merry-Go-Round for the ABC in Melbourne. And on the commercials, one of the best programs was The Youth Show. The presiding genius behind this was Mark Maycomb, who'd once been writing topical reviews for the ABC. Compared by Robin Ordell, The Youth Show molded the talents of performers like Bill Kerr, Pauline Garrick, Michael Pate, John Farson, Margot Lee, Colin Croft, and Joy Nichols.
Give up, Tommy, and be a proud fella. Cheerio, carry on.
Carry on, you're in the right.
If Barbara right, when you're in proud fella. Cheerio, carry on. Oh, the sailor's smile, so hang on to your wings, and we'll find the little tricks. There's a whole world behind us. Stand fella, chin up, cheerio, carry on.
The Youth Show was one of the first successes of the newly formed Colgate-Palmolive radio unit, which was created to use up excess funds when the government froze profit percentages during the war. The unit had almost unlimited money at its disposal, employing at one stage an orchestra of 60 musicians and almost every radio variety performer of note in the country. Let's hear again some of the stars of the programs produced by the unit. For instance, each week Compere Jack Burgess would introduce those two old-fashioned girls, Ada and Elsie.
Come on, Elsie, hurry up. We've just got to buy that land from Uncle Willie by marriage or they'll put you in jail for being a felony. This is the house. I only hope they're home, that's all, and else I think I better handle this alone. Alone, I said. Now, do as I told you. You know what you are. I've asked a geologist. Are you listening to me? Yeah. You got your closets on? I've asked a geologist to inspect the property and give us a report. As soon as the geologist comes, keep him there till I get home.
Well, how can I keep him there?
Well, just use your indiscretion. I don't care what. Now, off you go.
Well, can I get a taxi?
No, you can't get a taxi. There's no time to drive round past the YMCA.
Oh.
And Jack Davies seemed to be everywhere. Now in quizzes like Rise and Shine, now playing sketches with people like Rex Wackador. He even matched his comedy on a few rare occasions with Royreen Moe, another comic who amused a whole new generation via the radio.
All our family are builders.
Are they?
Yes, there's Kit. She carries the grit, and Grandma, she brings the hammer, and Jules, he brings the tools, and Rodney brings the hot, and Dick...
I know. He lays the brick.
No, he brings the pig.
Well, who lays the brick?
Me.
I thought Rick was safe.
Now that's Nick. Oh!
listen to me. I don't want to hear any more about your family. Is that clear?
Drat you, lucky. I'm only trying to help.
Well, don't. And what are you looking so miserable about?
I lost me gimlet.
Well, never mind your gimlet.
I'm no good without me gimlet.
Well, where did you have it last?
I left it in the Dinny pail.
Dinny pail?
He brings the nail.
Now, cut that out. When was your last job?
The day before.
The day before what?
The day before I lost me gimlet.
I'll break every bone in your body. What job were you on last?
We built a house in Williamstown in Melbourne.
Who's we?
Me and Edwin Stiles.
Edwin Stiles?
He brought the tile.
Stop it. I'll go mad. How long did you take to build this place?
4 days.
4 days? That was quick.
Well, you see, I had me gimlet.
How did you get on for materials? Cement?
Well, we didn't have any cement. We went up to the flour mills and bought 3 tons of self-raising flour.
Oh, I get it. You made a complete house from flour.
Yes, it was the first family to live in a sponge cake.
Well, that is certainly unique.
And down the yard was a small scone.
Scone? What scone?
The gimlet.
In the unit's productions, first-class singers like Kathleen Goodall and Alan Code appeared regularly, and more humour was supplied by Dick Bentley, Hal Lashwood, the brilliant but eccentric George Blackshaw, the American Wayne Froman, and the very Australian Willie Fennell.
How are you, mate?
Willie?
Yes?
I suppose you know that the first duty of a valet is to understand a man's clothes.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's most important.
Yes, I know, Mr. Lasher. In other words, you can't be high and mighty in a red flannel nightie.
Yes, well, just remember who you're working for. My ancestors went back to King William.
What for, to apologize?
Yes. No! Anyway, I don't know much about your antecedents.
Well, there's no... Me waters?
Your antecedents. What's the history of your antecedents?
Well, I bought them in 1949. I've been wearing them ever since.
Oh. I was referring to your family. Are you related to aristocracy?
Oh, aristocracy.
Yes.
Oh, yes, my dad was a real aristocrat. Look, it was a real treat to see the way he'd crook both his little fingers while he drank his cocoa.
Willie, you mean the way he'd crook his finger? You only hold a cup with one hand.
Yeah, but Dad, I drank out of the saucer.
The unit used pop singers like Marjorie Stediford, Pam Corrigan, Al Royal, Peggy Brooks, Terry Howard, Brian Lawrence, and Joan Clark. The regular compere was Jack Burgess. The orchestra was conducted by Montague Brearley. The regular scriptwriters were Alex MacDonald and Fred Parsons. Producer was Russell Scott. But I think the highlight of these broadcasts was Macaque Mansions with the old master again, Mo.
Where are you, Dad?
Stand back a few paces, Harry, because I'm going to sing. And when I sing, I'm liable to splash. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Why am I so sweet? I do not know.
Gee, Dad, I wish you wouldn't sing.
Why?
Every time you sing, I've got to go outside. Otherwise, the neighbors will think I'm sticking pins in you.
You won't say that, Harry, when I'm invited to sing with the new Italian opera company under the name of Signor Moe Macacaroni.
There's no doubt about you, Dad. You sing like a bird.
Thank you, Harry. A skylark.
No, a buzzard.
Harry, come me. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Who's standing on the cat's tail?
I resent that, Honorable Herbie. I'm practicing for the opera.
Peekaboo, everybody. It's little me, Spencer, the garbage.
Ah, come in, Spencer. Come in, Spencer, dear, and bring your schoolgirl complexion with you.
Mr. McPhee, did I just hear you bursting into glorious song?
Yes, Spencer. I was singing a very romantical number.
How did it affect you? Did it make you shy? No, but it made me horse shy.
Hey, what do you think, Spencer? Now he's practicing singing for the Grand Opera Company.
I am, too. I'm already practicing the 3 C's. Middle C, high C.
Yeah, what's the other C?
Second C. Hey, Zay, put that on your pizzicato and strum it. Well, I wish I'd known, Mr. McSee. I have a favourite air, but I didn't bring it with me. That's what you think. Oh, dear. What is it, Spence? I'll walk beside you. Oh, no, you won't. Oh, phew. My Uncle Harrico lost his voice once. Did he? So the doctor told him to take some pills on an empty stomach. Did he, Spence, and what happened? They rolled off. With the boy soprano. Every morning I bring me by.
You're running off the scales of an aria.
No, I'm scraping off the scales of a doofish. Crackhead. I'm expecting a call from the opera company.
Opera? What do you know about opera?
I know all the operas. From Carmen to Miranda.
On the musical front, one of the most charming vocalists of the war years was Gene Kirchie, who later made frequent appearances in the long-running ABC hit parade.
Although some people say he's just a crazy guy, to me he means a million other things. For he's the one who taught this happy heart of mine to fly. He wears a pair of silver wings. And though it's been tough, the job he has to do, I wouldn't have him change it for a king. An ordinary fellow in a uniform of blue, he wears a pair of silver wings. I'm so full of pride when we go walking, every time he's home on leave. He with those wings on his tunic, me with my heart on my sleeve. But when I'm left alone and we are far apart, I sometimes wonder what tomorrow brings. For I adore that crazy guy who taught my happy heart to wear a pair of silver wings.
Around this time, we were listening to singing groups like the Parker Sisters and the Lester Sisters, and getting pleasure from acts by Clifford Guest and Hurry Dargy. There was Bob Dyer's House Party and Australia's Amateur Hour, compared by Dick Fair. By the way, Johnny O'Connor and Peggy Mortimer were just two performers who got their start on the Amateur Hour. Then there was the wacky humor of Ward Leopold. A regular performer of character comedy was George Nichols.
'Twas on a bonny summer's day, the sun was shining clear. I went away on a holiday and I met my dear wee dear. She looks so sweet, a perfect treat, her eyes were full of bliss. And ever since I kissed her face, I'm always singing this. Oh, she's the lass for me, oh, she's the lass for me. I've never seen another face that could ever take a place. She has unlocked my heart and stolen away the key. Hey, she is, yes she is, she's the lass for me. Her age is only 21,
born on the 6th of next July. I'd like to buy her something nice, but I don't know what to buy. I'd like to buy a tartan tie and a bunny wee tartan box. She's been so kind to me, she's knitted me 20 pairs of socks. She's the lass for me. She's the lass for me. Oh, I've never seen another face that could ever take a place. She has locked my heart and stolen away the key. She is, yes, she is. She's the lass for me.
In January 1941 began the ABC's longest-running variety show, the Village Glee Club. I'm sure you'll recognize this voice.
Watch my beat, please. Thank you.
Yes, Colin Crane, who died only last year. In his early career, he appeared on the stage in musical comedy and recorded this song from The Maid of the Mountains.
At 17, he falls in love quite madly with eyes of tender blue. At 24, he gets it rather badly with eyes of a different hue. At 35, you'll see him flirting sadly with 2 or 3 or more. When he fancies his past love, it is then he meets his last love, and he loves her as he's never loved before.
As the 40s went on, the ladies came to the fore in variety. Comedians like Fifi Banvar, Jenny Howard, Cicely Courtnidge visiting Australia, and that troublesome child, Babe Scott.
I'm very, very Australian. Because my forebears were British, you know. Great Granny was sent out for stealing some flour. What Great Granny reaped on the south. Great Grandpa was on the Endeavour, along with our dear Captain Cook. And of course, although he denied it and tried hard to hide it, he was commonly known as a crook. I'm very, very Australian. I was reared in the country, of course. Oh, yes, I know every inch of the dear old land, from Paddington up to the Cross. I know all the very best people. I'm really considered quite nice. Because I've never been presented at court, but the old man's been sent up once or twice. Because we fair dinkum really Australians. We take things as a matter of course. We don't take no notice. We don't think it's strange. The man puts his shirt on the horse. Because we don't ride the hounds as they do over there. In habit and bowler. Nay, nay. We nick out to the doors on a Saturday night and we bung on the dinner each way. But I like living down here in Aussie, under the old Southern Cross. We're proud of our harbour, our sunshine and surf, and our national game, pitch and toss. And gee, are we proud of our diggers, our boys in their khaki and blue. They won't make a fuss, but they'll look after us, and they'll make a good job of it too. 'Cause if there's trouble and things get a bit uphill, Australia will be there, my boys, to bloom and right she will.
There were still a few of the old big personality radio announcers to be heard on the air. One was John Harper in Sydney.
I'd like to say good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, boys and girls. I've been saying for, I think, 26 years, ever since I was a boy when I joined 2KY when I was 12, making me today 38 years of age. Says you, eh? 38 winters. What about the summers?
In Melbourne, the big morning personality was Nicky, who towards the end of his career trained a young man who's since been the darling of Melbourne television, Graham Kennedy. This is how Nicky and Graham sounded together.
think we'd better go into our funny story.
Right.
How are you, Canary?
I'm fine, thanks, Nick.
I have a little question to ask you, Canary.
You have a little question to ask me, Nick?
Yeah.
Tell me what the little question
Which has
is.
the most fun, rabbits or people?
I don't know. Which has the most fun, rabbits or people?
Rabbits.
Why rabbits?
Because there are more rabbits. I'm not finished yet.
Oh. Why are there more rabbits, Nick?
Because rabbits have more fun than people.
Jim Gussie was now conductor of the ABC Sydney Dance Band, which was heard in Gussie's Tavern, Show Business, Press Gang, Fry Jest, and many other shows. In 1950, Arthur Askey starred for the ABC in a most successful comedy series. And in 1952, there was, remember it, the comedy show set in colonial Australia called Ticket of Leave. The Colgate-Palmolive radio unit had folded by the time the 50s began. Financial restrictions on commerce had eased, and to quote one advertising executive, the unit had outlived its economic usefulness. But a new comedy series was going great guns on the Macquarie Network, written by George Foster and starring one of the great comedians of the Australian variety world, George Wallace.
Hello, here's our boy from the bush, George Wallace. Well, George, at long last you've actually met a young lady you feel you could get along with in the show, eh?
Yes, Myrtle Morgan. In my opinion, she's a terrific sort.
Good.
Mind you, she's a bit tall for me. She stands about 6'2".
Oh, don't be silly. She wouldn't be that tall at all.
Huh?
I said she wouldn't be that tall at all.
Tall at all?
Yes.
You got the stutters, the Irish. You made Irishman or
She's
something.
not a tall girl at all.
Well, I still say Myrtle Morgan is a tall girl. She'd be over 6 feet tall if they could straighten out her legs.
All right, so the poor girl's dandy. And I thought you told me you weren't going to sling off at this
I'm
girl.
not going to sling off. I'm not going to sling off at all. She's my type after all. She told me last night I had everything that Clark Gable has.
Oh, you've got everything that Clark Gable has.
That's right, except I've let it get a bit shabby, that's all.
Yes. Well, if you like the girl, don't refer to any of her physical detections. Be nice to her and don't start any arguments. That's
Who,
right.
me start arguing? Look, I'm the most peaceful fellow on the face of the earth. Do I strike you as a bloke that likes arguments, do I?
Oh, can a duck swim?
Huh?
I said, can a duck swim?
Well, of course a duck can swim. Even the smallest children in the street knows that a duck is capable of doing a dog paddle.
Oh, all right, all right.
Ducks are very intelligent creatures. Just because their eggs aren't popular, don't think they haven't got more brains than a hen.
Ah, look, let's forget about ducks, shall we?
Well, you brought the subject up, and let me tell you, as a man who has had his own fowl yard, that a duck definitely is capable of propelling itself in the water.
All right, all right.
If you've ever poured water over a duck's back, you would realize that under the newer water...
I don't want to hear anything more about ducks here this afternoon.
Well, they definitely can swim. I've seen them. They have webbed hoops. And a very fine sense of humor. If you've ever heard a duck make a wisecrack...
Oh, will you forget about ducks if you don't mind? Forget about them. Introduce the audience to Miss Myrtle Morgan, and no arguments with it, you understand? No arguments with the girl.
Certainly. Next Saturday, no. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to give the little girl a big hand. Introducing the new heroine of our show, Miss Myrtle Morgan, one of your own local Sheilas.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, too, George.
Don't mention it. I haven't finished wrapping up yet, love. Ladies and gentlemen, this little local girl, I might say without fear of comprehension, is definitely one of the finest actresses in the country. One of the finest actresses in the country. Here. Mind you, they'd probably give her the bird in the city. But in the country, she's all right. She gets by.
Hey, I didn't like that. In my opinion, George Wallace, I've had just as much experience as you in the theater.
Ridiculous giggling.
Oh, yes. I'll have you know, I toured in the Latin countries. When I did a season in South America and Brazil, a songwriter wrote a special song about me.
What was it? South America, take it away.
Now, George.
She started it.
You're starting again. Now, you're getting into arguments. Why can't you be a peacemaker?
But I won't stand for George.
Pardon me, but what am I supposed to be around here? I'm introduced and I'm left standing round on the stage while this barrel-tummied thing keeps talking about himself.
I beg your repulsive feminine pardon. I'd hate to be as skinny as you. If anyone looked at you, they'd think there was a famine in the country.
Yes. And if anyone looked at you, they'd think you caused it.
Full flop. All right, now keep going. George, I'm going to ask Miss Morgan one thing. Tell me, Miss Morgan, do you think you'll be capable of acting very, very difficult parts?
Can a duck swim?
Now, I'm glad you asked.
During the 50s, comedy on the ABC came from Bobby Lim, Hal Lashwood, Dick Bentley, and visitors like Richard Murdoch and Spike Milligan. By now, Bob Dyer and Jack Davy had emerged as the two leading radio personalities of the decade, each comparing rival quiz shows and outdoing each other in stunts and giveaways. A typical Dyer performance went like this.
Who's going to climb for it first, doll?
First tonight, Bob, is Petty Officer Tom Bushby.
Petty Officer Tom Bushby?
Yes, Bob, in the dental branch.
You do your petting in the dental branch? What's the nurse's name? Don't answer the... Well, that's wonderful, Tom. You're in the Yank department.
Yes, Bob, in the Yank department.
Tom, let's get started here, and your standby is...
Irene Middleton, Bob.
Yes. You Miss Middleton?
Yes.
Well, honey, isn't that something? Have you always been a miss? Well, Irene, we're glad to have you. You're a professional lady. Do you have some sort of a... calling?
No, not now.
Not now?
No, Bob.
What did you do before that?
I was typist and stenographer.
Stenographer?
Yes.
You didn't get off with the boss?
They put? No, evidently not.
No, evidently not. Well, Irene is as cute and as sweet as you are. I don't know how you did it. You watch old Tom. He's a... Are you married, Tom?
No, Bob, single.
Uh-oh. Irene, have you ever known any sailors, Irene?
Oh, I wouldn't like to say that, Bob.
You just don't like to tell fibs, do you, Irene? Well, anyway, you watch him and catch him if you can. That's a good one. Catch him if you can, Irene. And if he comes to launch, you want to run a little faster, too. Here's your first question, Tom. Across what stretch of water did Leander swim to reach Hero? The Hellespont or the Straits of Gibraltar?
The first one, Bob, the Hellespont.
Hellespont, right or wrong?
Correct.
Correct it is, up to one step.
As the rival quizmaster, Jack Davy traveled Australia with his unit, headed by producer Perce Campbell, bringing entertainment to millions.
All right, here comes Miss Trafford and Mrs. Brooker. Easy this. I haul it up, snatch, grab, whatever you do, but make sure you get the money. What's a toddy?
A drink.
Because not only did she give the right answer, but she also took the money in a very ladylike way. What's this? A member of the force, what?
Yes, that's right.
Anything. And one got a bit of me, but I don't mind. I can take it. Hello, Mrs. Andrew.
Davy?
Mr. Andrew. Nice, easy one for you. How do you coddle an egg?
Oh, you cuddle it. You boil it.
Oh, you do? You do? Well, I never guessed it. Good evening, Miss Quinn. Miss Quinn? The Quinn twins. Would you Quinn a little closer? Thank you. That's fine. What have I got for you? What is a quill? A pen, a feather. I don't care whether it's a feather or a mother. It makes no difference. You've got the money. Off you go.
The Jack was the greatest figure produced by radio in Australia. No one seemed seriously to dispute. After almost 30 years at the top of his profession, Jack Davy died in a Sydney hospital of cancer on October the 14th, 1959. Only a few weeks before his death, he recorded this song which he'd written. It's a poignant reminder of a remarkable man.
I spend the lonely daytime in a garden among the trees. As I look up to heaven, I thank the Lord for giving me things such as these. I spend the lonely evening with the moon and the stars above. As I look up to heaven, I thank Him too for giving me such things to love. For the life that I know, I can thank Him so. For He taught me to live, laugh and cry. And I send a prayer to Him way up there for teaching me just how to die. I spend the silent midnight with its shadows upon the wall. On my knees in the darkness, I thank the Lord for eyes to behold the face of each friend until I'm told its journey's end. Yes, I thank you, Lord, for the life you've given. And as the shadows softly fall, I will be ready when you call.
With the death of Jack Davy, an era of Australian show business came to a close. The great days of the radio entertainers were over. A new medium, television, was making and breaking its own stars. But then show business is like that. As one door closes, another opens, and new performers, eager, applause-hungry, and determined to succeed, are waiting in the wings, waiting to carry on the story of fair dinkum Australian variety. The closing theme of the George Wallace Show seems to sum it all up.
Now the show is over, we head for the train. Another time tomorrow, we'd like to remain. We got to say goodbye now till we meet again, where the Wallace Show's in town.
Fair Dinkum Variety was written by Charles Graham and John West. Records in the program came from the archives of the ABC, the Macquarie Broadcasting Service, and stations 3DB, 3UZ, and 2KY. The narrator was John West, and Fair Dinkum Variety was produced in Sydney by Charles Graham.